Hey everyone, I'm Laszlo, and thanks for having me. And yeah, I brought to you something little maybe out of the usual. So I'm sharing my screen now, and then we can get started. The whole desktop. Cool. So shout if you are not seeing what I'm seeing. But I am a freelance DevOps consultant. I've been working with Kubernetes and Docker and so on for a few years now, and I'm mostly active in the Nordics community. So thanks for having me over here in Amsterdam. And I've been hacking on a little tool or little product called OneClick Infrastructure. It's a bit catchy name, but it really tries to convey that you can get the typical Kubernetes components like Loki for logging and Nginx ingress or Prometheus up on your cluster rather easily. And I'm not doing anything extraordinary. It's more like taking what's out there already and just packaging it in perhaps in a more pleasing way. It's just an opinion over the things that are out there, mostly Helm charts and GitOps tools that you are most likely familiar with, just on maybe on a more pleasing UI and so on. The main site basically tells that there are three things to do. You have to connect your Git because there is a Git repository needed for this. You have to pick and choose what you want to install, and then you just write the configuration to Git. And there is a one-time setup which bootstraps the automation. And from then on, since it's GitOps, everything that is in this Git repo goes down right to your cluster. So that's my tool, and I've been showing it to some friends and everything, and recording videos. And I was usually done in like 15 minutes with talking a lot and showing the things in depth. And then I was thinking like I could get this under 5 minutes, and that sounded like a nice goal to have. And then I was thinking like, what's 5 minutes? And then like we could do a speed run or something, and turns out Super Mario is almost 5 minutes. So this guy was beating Super Mario in 4 minutes and 56 seconds. And I was promising that I try to beat this record on this demo. And if everything aligns, I think I will be able to. This morning I was able to, but perhaps not this time. But so I think I will just run through the speed run. It's going to be 5 minutes. More or less, and then I'm just going to show you what's underneath. And then I'm really looking forward to feedback, because this is a little bit an unusual packaging of open source software, and I want to hear like what you think about it and what things you don't understand. So deep breath, and unless there are any questions, and then I start the speed run. All right, I have my deep breath, and 2, 1, 0, go. Cool. So let's log in to GitHub, authorize. There are the permission lists, which I'm not going to go in depth right now, but email address mostly, or just access to your repos, and then installing the Git app to your organization. And I am granting permission for just a single repo. For that, I'm actually creating a repo right now, so nothing personal or anything gets into this recording. It's a private repo since it's infrastructure stuff, and it's right there. And now I'm selecting this repository, and I'm granting permissions. So cool. Now this is the only repo this app sees. I picked it, and I was promising you a few components. It's going to be Grafana Loki for logs. It's enabled. Prometheus for metrics. And I was promising you ingress. Now it's enabled, and the hostname is going to be laszlo.local. So this is going to be just accessible on my machine. So these are the three components. I'm not enabling Cert Manager and so forth. We can talk about those later. And I'm writing the configuration to Git. Crossing fingers, it will be done in like 5 to 10 seconds. And we could get into what's inside the repository, which I'm going to do after the speed run. But in the meantime, I'm going to create a Kubernetes cluster. And for that, I have, so K3D cluster create. I have this comment in my history because I'm passing in a server argument just to not deploy traffic. I'm going to use Nginx from this GitOps repo. And K3D is super fast, so that's is very nice for my demo. And this whole speedrun is made possible by the awesome open source software and tools like K3D, because it's really super fast to get a cluster up and running. So these things are in container creating, but they will start up rather soon. And now step 3, which is the one-time setup for the automation. I'm cloning the GitOps repo, creating a namespace for Flux, vFlux, just to have the GitOps automation in place. And in the speedrun to repository, a bootstrap folder was created where all the automation is stored. So just looking into the Flux namespace and looking at Mario where he is, 3 minutes and 15 seconds. From here on, I'm actually in the mercy of my internet connection, because now we are just pulling images and creating this container. Please be faster. And once it's okay, it's running, but not ready. But by now, I will see another namespace where all the selected components are being installed. So again, pulling containers or images. And this little packaging gets me an ingress as well. On Grafana Laszlo local, if you remember that host name. And still a bunch of things initializing. I'm making this larger because it's not in one line as I'm used to. So, all right, it's better. And now we have an IP address, just an internal one. Oh, why is that so? Sudo nano just to set this IP for Grafana, which is there, and I'm going to open this in Chrome. So by the way, Mario just finished. I was speaking too much. But I have Grafana running, and I have a one-liner to get the password for Grafana, the admin user, and I am in. And this automation also gets me a bunch of dashboards by default. So that's it. I lost 5 minutes, 5 to 10 seconds. I don't know how long it was, but yeah, so a little, almost like a minute over, but let me just slow down and talk you through what was just happening on the screen. Maybe also if you have any questions along the way, just stop me at any point.
It was a very close call, so well done anyway.
Yeah, just too much talking and just being nervous. All right, so I was picking Loki, Prometheus, and so on, and as you could see, there was only a few flags. So it's a Helm chart, but Helm charts have many options. I am only exposing things that are part of the usual use cases. And also there is like an introductory thing, like how to interact with this component once it's installed. It's very much inspired by DigitalOcean's marketplace, by the way. For example, the one-liner to get the admin password is also part of this page. I was not installing Cert Manager because my local host was not accessible from the outside, so the SSL cert was not possible to provision in this setup. And then I was writing this configuration to Git, and I promised you to show what's inside. So if you are familiar with Flux and the Helm operator, that's what's inside the automation. So these are regular Kubernetes YAML files, which deploy with Flux, meaning that I am configuring Flux to listen to this speedrun repository and deploy anything from these two folders. So by the time the automation was running, it was also deploying the components we have picked. And each file represents a component or part of a component. There was a namespace infrastructure. This is just a plain YAML file, but there are also Helm releases, which is a CRD from the Helm operator, meaning that the things you do usually with Helm on the command line, with a values file or with set parameters, you can do it in a declarative fashion. So you reference a chart, and then you set the values. And basically what OneClick Infra does is a curated list of components and settings packaged in one pack. So for example, if you enable Nginx and you have Loki, then Grafana is installed and also offered on an ingress. So all the things that you have to hunt through GitHub repositories and Helm chart pages is actually presented to you in a same fashion. And as you could see, there were some cloud-specific selectors up here as well. So if you deploy on DigitalOcean, you get DigitalOcean specific annotations for proxy protocol, for example. So you get like the real IP address of your client. Or if you deploy to Linode, there are also specific things to Linode. And over time, I will extend these supported clouds. So with Azure, for example, maybe something with their application gateway ingress and how that is deployed. And also, besides these logging, Nginx, and Prometheus components, other typically used things are part already. And I'm going to extend this list. Like for secrets, the sealed secrets component from Bitnami is part of this system. Also, Linkerd if you want to try service meshes. And actually, this is one easy way to try out Linkerd on a K3 D cluster locally. All right, so I was at the GitOps part. All these descriptors are in Git and synchronized down to the cluster real time. So if you get pods, you could see all the things that are in Git are also coming down to your cluster. If you want to extend or change the configuration, besides the options that OneClick Infra gives you, you could directly change these YAML files as well, if you know the Helm chart configuration yourself. And those changes will be preserved when you further update with OneClick Infra. And besides the very on-demand, please write my configuration to Git button, there is a weekly update scheduled, meaning that you will get pull requests into your Git repository with version updates. So if you have an Nginx component and there is a new version of Nginx, you get a pull request. And basically, you can just merge. And I try to take off. I try to take this responsibility off of your shoulders, so you don't have to be on top of everything, because I try to be on top of everything for you. And yeah, so basically that's the little tool, and I'm using with some of my clusters, also with some of my clients, and the list of components is getting extended. And yeah, I'm really interested what you guys think of this. Even though I couldn't beat Mario, I think this was still a good or speedy way to equip your cluster with the, the usual things, the baseline tooling that everybody needs if you deploy Kubernetes. And yeah, that was that. And I could later on go on with some maybe further plans, what I'm thinking of with OneClick Infra, but maybe you have questions right now.
Thanks, Laszlo. We already had actually one question that's in the chat. If you want to access the chat, or I can read it to you. Up to you.
All right, I'm trying to.
That's all right. Let me read it for you then.
Yeah, thank you.
It's a question from Jerome Petazzoni, who asks, any particular reason why you had to create the Flux namespace by hand versus having it in the manifest on GitHub? And he specifies, I mean, it would have saved you at least 2 seconds in the speed run, which is critical at this point.
It's a good question. And I myself, I'm usually trying to reduce the number of manual steps. I had to do this for some reason, which I cannot recall at this point. Maybe I was having some collision with the bootstrap folder, what's inside of that one. And yeah, so I cannot recall. I would think myself that it could be part of the Git repo, but I don't know what was my reason. So I think I have to look into this one.
Well, I hope, Jerome, it answers your question. Seems that it does.
Okay.
I'd like just to say, Laszlo, that I really like this. I think it's super cool how it's a great way to start, but it's also not a way to that starts you down the wrong direction, like some command line tool that would just create things and then you have no good way to continue from there. The whole GitOps adds that kind of production readiness to it, that like from here on I'm gonna be editing things in Git, and yeah, and that's like a good way to manage what gets created by the tool. I really like it, really cool. And the whole web interface makes it feel like these Spring application starters and whatever that have been really popular, because yeah, you don't need an IDE or whatever to work with it. It's super easy and nice. Cool, very, very cool project.
Thank you. Yeah, definitely. So the inspiration was DigitalOcean's marketplace and some other marketplaces where you can get just some simple stuff running. And my problem was with those two were actually twofold. One is that the Helm charts you're getting from DigitalOcean, the defaults are not very much tailored towards DigitalOcean itself. So that was one thing. And the other one was those felt like just a one-off thing. And then it was easy to get started, but what happens then? And since I was playing with GitOps and doing GitOps in multiple ways before, I just felt that GitOps could be used as a software delivery mechanism, and just getting the automation alongside is just a huge upside. So I'm happy that you liked it. I actually maybe have a question back to you. So this is not the usual interface like developers are using. Like they are using CLIs and does it feel like to you like a toy tool, or do you actually regard this as a real tool, not just something which is maybe not for professionals or something?
I don't mind the web interface when it's for starters, right? When I just need to get going. I mean, a CLI that would just offer these options would be also fine. Maybe the ideal is to have both. But otherwise, no, I think it's cool. Cool. That doesn't feel like just a toy.
Thank you. Also, I started with these two cloud providers, maybe aiming for smaller companies, perhaps. Maybe that's just the wrong thought to have, but maybe those companies are perhaps more inclined to use something like a visual tool than jumping into the open source world and figuring out everything from GitHub. All right, any other question?
Yeah.
Oh, sorry.
Which components are you looking to add next?
All right. Right next is Palmarium, if I pronounce it correctly. It's an identity-aware proxy because there are some applications people develop which doesn't have authentication built in. So having that part of every cluster, I found that useful because then just with an annotation, you can have an auth-based authentication on every service.
And what was the name again? Sorry, I'm not aware with it. Palmarium.
Yes.
Okay, cool.
So that's one thing. And then just off of my Twitter stream, Falco was top of mind because I think there were some buzz around it over the weekend. And the value proposition was quite nice. Like I don't have to do much, or at least as I read it from the on the label, and it gives me prevention over scary stuff. And maybe that's a blind spot for me and other people as well.
Yeah.
So those are the two immediate ones. But I don't have many opinions. The only thing is that it has to be used or it has to be very useful in this constellation of things, because I don't want this to be a source for all the tools. It's more like one or two options in each category.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, I think maybe like Valero and backup.
Okay, that's a good point. Yeah, I haven't thought of that.
But this is also a chance I can plug that Software Circus next week. There'll be a talk on Falco, which is joint with me as well. So.
Cool. I'm gonna watch it.
Jean-Pierre had like a comment as well, what you were saying earlier, like it's not a toy and it's really nice to start with. I think about the UI thing.
Thank you.
Anybody else has questions for Laszlo? As I mentioned in the chat, feel free to unmute yourselves. As you can tell, people are like really open to asking live questions, but if you'd rather ask in the chat, please feel free to do that as well.
Well, I'm interested, Laszlo, is this something that you're building like because you're using it in your day job, or is it like you're building it with an idea of it becoming something bigger that you know kind of becomes more of a full-time thing for you? What's your strategy around?
So I am using it in my day job as well. So I'm using it on my own clusters and with one of my clients right now. And I wouldn't mind if eventually it would take off, but right now I'm just trying to, just find a problem or find a solution that is worth solving and people like it, and just to make something. And but eventually, yes, making money from it, sure, in some ways, but I believe the basic functionality will remain free forever. So that's maybe I was thinking of some enterprise packages at some point, like enterprise loves documentation artifacts if they have some audits or something, because if they rely on this this solution, then maybe helping them with the boring stuff as well could be helpful. But yeah, I'm fishing for ideas that work really. So trying out different things.
Just wanted to say I really like the way you presented it, Laszlo. So it's like really novel. Put yourself under pressure like that. I tell you what would be really great to do like a live battle between you and someone doing the speed run, maybe at a bigger conference. That'd be really exciting.
we could do that, and I'm going to practice at that point, because I'm sure those Mario guys were not born like this.
And everyone loves Mario.
Yes.
Last minute like comment from Noel. He says, this is very cool. One thing that differentiated with other things I've used is that OneClick Infra, all the config to a Git repo so it can be handled later via GitOps later on.
Yes, and I already put myself, so I have already put into this repo other components as well, which are not part of OneClick Infra, and also just simple applications. So just it's an easy way to have GitOps up and running. But actually, by now, you can have a similar setup achieved in a very fast way with the GitOps toolkit from Weaveworks. So it's not unique, so there are other options as well. But yes, since this automation is in place, you can use it for whatever really. You can install Helm charts or just roll YAMLs or even customize, I think, if you do it right.
I was just wondering, replacing or adding Argo CD instead of Flux, because some people just have the preference over there. Would that be an option?
Maybe. I don't know Argo myself, so that's a limiting factor. But it's a possibility as long as it has the delivery mechanism. Yes. And if you want to do this this same exercise, I actually have a video with K3D, which is exactly the same I just did. It features Linkerd at the end. So if you are interested in Linkerd, then you can have a quick start with that.